Hello again. So as you know, I produce a newsletter every 2 weeks, and on my off weeks, I post articles to Boag World. The articles are designed to address a topic that I know people are going to be interested in based on keyword research that I've carried out. They're created in response to a specific user need. By contrast, in these videos, I talk about whatever it is I think you need to know. If I surveyed you and asked you what you wanted me to talk about, the chances are that most of the topics I do cover wouldn't even be on your radar because they haven't occurred to you. However, based on the feedback that I receive from people, generally speaking, people enjoy the videos and newsletters that I create. In other words, a group of users doesn't always know what it is that they want. As Henry Ford famously put it, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Steve Jobs took this even further when he said, some people say, give the customer what they want, but that's not my approach. Our job is to figure out what they're going to want before they do. People don't know what they want until you show it to them. And that's why I never rely on market research. Now notice he says never rely on market research, not that he never carries it out. These quotes are often held up as showing the limitation of user-centric design, and to be honest, I agree with that point of view. If all we're ever doing is delivering what users request, it's going to stifle creativity and it's going to prevent us from making intuitive leaps that lead to products or services that users never imagined that they wanted. It's possible to take user research too far. Just look at the famous example of Google testing 41 shades of blue. Not only was this an enormous waste of Google's admittedly extensive resources, it also undermined the role of designers within the company. So how do you know when user research and testing is appropriate and when it's not? Is there a comfortable relationship between creativity and research? For me, it comes down to the cost associated with any decision and the potential benefits of any research. Put another way, it involves doing a cost-benefit analysis. Let me explain that in a little bit more detail. The problem with Google testing 41 shades of blue is that the cost was high and the benefit was low. The shade of blue was only going to have a statistically insignificant impact on the number of clicks that they received, and those clicks didn't really add any additional revenue to Google's already massive coffers. By contrast, the cost was high, both in terms of the time it took to run those tests and the negative impact it had on designer morale within the company. In short, testing provided no real benefit and cost a lot. Of course, there are scenarios when testing is definitely worthwhile. When Disney came up with its new Magic Band for their parks, it made a lot of sense in a lot of ways. It was almost certainly going to dramatically improve the experience and lead to considerably more cost savings and additional revenue for the company. However, implementing the new technology would involve changes to every ride, every concession stand and every hotel room in the park at a cost that was probably going to be in excess of $1 billion. Unsurprisingly, Disney decided to test extensively before deciding whether to roll out the technology, despite its very obvious benefits. When it comes to deciding whether research or testing is required, you need to ask yourself, how much will it cost to test this idea? And if the idea then fails because you decided not to test it, what would you have lost? So, in short, just go for it when the cost of failure is low, but test when the cost of failure is high, and also test if it's just easy to do so, if it's going to be quick and cheap, and why not test them? So when it comes to something like my newsletters, I can afford to just go for it and write whatever I want, as the impact of the occasional newsletter not being particularly interesting is not very high. I say all of this because there seems to be two very distinct camps when it comes to this stuff. Those who want to test everything and those who believe it undermines creativity. But in truth, both of these viewpoints are valid and both of them make sense. Ultimately, it's a judgment call that has to be made on a case-by-case basis.